Hi guys, welcome to how to create a lead report. Today I'm going to run you through how to create a report, but I'm also going to teach you the mindset you should adopt and some tips and tricks along the way. So yeah, without further ado, let's go into the example. I'll just minimize myself. If we just go over to the right here, we have our good colleague Chad. Now, Chad has a request for us. I need a report to see where most of my hot/warm leads are coming from, as I need to ensure our sales teams are keeping up with new and hot leads. Now, this is quite a general question kind of general request really, and it is something that you're going to have to become a bit more familiar with, as it's our job to understand what the customer needs and which features to use, because the people who request a report, they kind of need to see the report, and it's our job to kind of ensure that the visualization of the data is the best for them. So we kind of look at the questions that we need to really ask ourselves is, first of all, we need to think about what information you need to select and the correct record type. Now, from my previous video, if you haven't seen it already, selecting the correct record report type is 50% of the job. Now, if we don't select the correct report type, the data we're looking for might not show up. Now, that's one of the first things that we want to identify is which report type do we need. So if we look at the request, we can see that we're talking about leads. So this would be a good assumption to think about, to kind of go with, is that we need the lead report. So let's go over to Salesforce. Now remember, if you don't have the report tab here, you can always search for it. If you check out my previous kind of video, it will run you through all of the kind of basic features of creating a report. So what you want to do is click New Report, and that will bring up this screen. So you can either click leads if you've recently used it. If not, you can click on the left hand side here and you can look for your leads report. We'll click Start, and we have our report. Few things I like to suggest is always keep this on if you're new to reporting. That way you can see the changes that are happening right in front of you, which kind of makes it easier to troubleshoot. Now, the second thing I like to do is apply filters. Why? This will help us confirm whether or not we've selected the correct report type. Now, if we apply all our filters and we don't get any records back, either the filters are incorrect or we selected the incorrect report type, and that will save you a lot of time. Now, if we look at kind of the request we have, first of all, we want to look at the rating, as it's there. We want our hot/warm leads. Now, the more familiar you become with the fields in your org, the more easier it will become to understand which field you're looking for. Worst case scenario, you can always pull in the field that you feel like it might be, and you can see the data, but we'll just come back to that in a second. So you want to look at the kind of the rating. And secondly, we want leads that are owned by this user, as it's my hot and warm leads. Yeah. So we want to also filter by the owner. And we also want to look at things that are in the pipeline. And what does in the pipeline mean? In the pipeline means something that's not closed. So either it's not been won and it's not been lost. So we want things that are in progress, right? So we also need to look at our status as well. Now we have our three basic filters that we want to work with. Now is the best time to hop back to the report. Now, first thing you do is click on your filters, and you'll see these two basic filters. You might see more depending on how your org has been configured. But for us, we have Show Me and our created date. Now, Show Me has already been selected for the correct one for us, as we're looking at my leads. So when you share this with the user, it will always show their leads. But you also are presented with a few other options, such as all leads, team leads and other things like that. But for us, what's important is my leads. Yeah. We'll click apply. And nextly, we want to look at the created date. Now, the created date has been set to the 26th of December. What we want to do is we want to grab as many leads as possible to start with and then narrow down, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to put the created date as all time. click apply, and you'll see all of our data is visible. As I mentioned previously, we didn't know exactly if the field was going to be rating to tell us whether they're hot, warm, or cold, right? Now, what you can do is you can add in fields as a column to confirm whether or not that's the right column to be filtering by. That's another trick I like to use if you're not familiar with the org itself. So let's go back to kind of Miro. So we can see we've already filtered by our rating, our owner, and now we just need to look at status. Why do we need to look at status? Now, the status, we don't want to look at anything that's been already closed or won, because I feel like that's quite useless, as we're not looking at the current pipeline to help the sales team get their sales. Now, that's not something that's been specifically asked of us, but something that we need to assume from the kind of requirements of the report. Yeah. So I like to go with not equal to, as it's less things to kind of click. So we don't want anything that's lost. Yeah. We'll click apply. And again, as we don't really know what the status is, what you can do is kind of come into here, as the same thing we did with our rating. We can pull in our lead status, and we can see we have all of these. Yeah. Now, the next thing we want to look at is the kind of the rating now, right? So we want something that's hot or warm. So that's the next place I'd go. Is I'll then come back into here, grab the rating field. Then we want to select hot and warm, and then click apply. And as we have our update preview automatically button selected, our toggle even, that will allow us to see all the changes happening in real time. Now we have kind of all of our data that's visible. The next place I like to go to is now how the report should look. And this is, I'd say, one of the more important parts for the end user, is kind of developing the report and visualizing the data in an efficient way. Now, again, we kind of have to come back to our requirements here. Now, when we work on the layout, we need to think about what would be important to our user, right? So they want to kind of ensure that the sales team are keeping up with new and hot leads. So with new, I'd assume that is something to do with kind of maybe the created date, right? So if the created date is newer, maybe that would suggest that, it's something that's more hot, something that you probably want to get on as soon as possible, right? So then we might want to do something with created date. Yeah. The next thing, kind of where we might want to look is we also want to see where most. Now, with where is a bit of a general question, so I think there's two fields off the top of my head which I feel like that could answer that question. One would be the lead source, and the other could be industry. And again, we won't ever get it right the first time, or not very often. It's a bit of an iterative process with your customer. So you want to design it as best as possible, and then kind of refine it when you do get back to the customer. But at that point, we do want it nearly fully ready. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of out of all of this, I think that's kind of it. And then also we do want to have our rating field as well. We can't forget that. And I think our status would be quite important as well, as we might want to see where in the pipeline the individual is. Now we have some of our fields that might be useful. Let's hop back to the report and add those in. Yeah. So we have kind of all of the basic ones that do come with it, which you do want to include, which is the first name, the last name, the title, the company name, the email, as well as kind of we've got a lead source. We might not need our street, as that's not part of the requirements. And then the lead owner, as it's one lead owner, I like to remove it. And what else do we need to add in? So we need to add in our industry, and we need to add in our created date. We have our created date, our rating, our sources, and our status. Now, the report looks okay, I suppose, but I think we can make it look a bit cleaner. First thing I like to do is kind of all by kind of personal preference, a bit of an iterative process. So once you bring it back to a user, they might suggest, "Oh, you know what, I want slight changes." But what would be useful is if we start grouping some of this. So first thing you might want to do is look at your created date and group that. Now, it's grouped by specific dates, but what you might want to do is group it by our calendar week. Now, you can look at a week by week which ones have come in when, and then you can identify, these are the kind of newer leads. We should be giving them a bit more, kind of moving these a bit more if they've not moved through the pipeline. Next, what you might want to do is, we have our kind of rating, right? So we might want to group by a rating so we can see the differences between our hot and warm leads. And then followed by that, what you might want to do is just kind of have your lead statuses along the top, and you have your industry as well as your sources. At this point, you could probably go another level. And as you can see, you've got kind of your lead sources, which are quite common. So you might also want to group by your lead source. So now what you have is you have a report where you can see week by week when the lead was created. Then you can differentiate whether it's hot or warm, and then you can go another level to tell you where they've come from, which is maybe which is our lead source. Again, you may come back to the customer, and this customer could be someone who is your colleague internally, anyone really, but I like to refer to them as a customer, as we're trying to provide the best service possible, right? And then that's pretty much your report. I like to do a few things to clean it up a little bit. Firstly, is there's a lot of subtotals. As we're not really working with numbers, I like to remove those. It gives it a bit of a cleaner look. And you can see it's really condensed the look and feel of the report. Now, what you want to do is click Save and Run. And again, remember, if you save it in the private reports, only you can look at them. So what we want to do is we want to save them somewhere public. So we'll pop them in Reporting 101. How about we do that? Give it a name. So my hot/warm leads. Give it a save. And as you can see, you've got our created dates, our ratings, our lead sources, and then all of the information that we need for each of the leads. Now, what you want to do is you want to give this back to Chad, and then you can have a review session and make those tiny, tiny tweaks, and they should be really happy with that. Yeah, and that covers kind of our reporting, how to create a lead report. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and a comment, and I'll sure to create some more. Thanks.